This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, mine doesn't say that I can share the screen. I guess because live is.
Try now, Aralda. So I made Mark a co-organizer and then you a presenter.
You closed my webcam. Okay. Is webcam closed by organizer?
What are you doing?
It says, are you sure?
Just make all three of us the organizer, and then when I'm done sharing the screen, then I'll just stop sharing the screen, and then you should be able to. Like right now, try to share your screen.
It says that Aralda is a presenter and an organizer, and it says that way for both. Sorry, Mark, I muted you by mistake.
Stop clicking things. Okay, everything is fine.
You're both already organizers, and not only that, I added Aralda as a co-organizer when I set it up.
Okay, we're good. This is the one that I just sent to you, right?
Yes. Let me just save it real quick.
Yeah, just go to slide, I guess there's like 35, and the ones I most recently changed were some of yours.
35, you said? Huh? No.
25.
Oh,
Sorry.
20. Okay,
it says transit-oriented development. Okay, good. We are groovy. I will go ahead and do it.
All right, do I need to still share my screen or Mark, you starting?
I'm starting. It just went away.
Oh, so you want me to run the PowerPoint?
No. I will start the PowerPoint and then give it to you. We can control our own slides.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No
you
worries.
both are on GoToMeeting as both of you says presenter and organizer, so you both should have the same capabilities.
It just kicked me off of sharing my screen. Did you do something, Aralda? Like, did you try to share yours?
I just stopped sharing, and now my share screen thing is okay.
Can you share, Mark? Because if not, I was like, let me know if I gotta click anything else.
No, don't click anything else.
Mark is the presenter now.
Is it sharing the screen now? It says it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
My share screen button is not. It's gray.
Correct, because he should. Wait, you can share your screen?
Cool it. Okay, you have your slide where you'll start here, right?
Yes.
Okay, just have your presentation at that slide, and then when you're ready, like when we're done with the introductions and it's time for you to go, just click share screen.
Okay.
And then when you're done, I will go to that slide and do the same thing.
You know? Yep, got it. Yep. I'm a little worried the little one will run here when I'm speaking. I'm getting nervous.
No, we've already done this exact thing before, so there's nothing to be nervous
about. Yeah, I'm not
about.
worried about that. I'm worried about her coming here running.
Turn off the camera.
I want her recorded on camera and posted on public view everywhere, and her talking to me. So I'm sure good. I'm a little lost.
We'll cut that out. We'll edit that out.
No, I'm turning off the camera if she comes here. That's what I'm going to do.
So, Alicia.
Yes.
We are expecting Dr. Pablo Ortiz or his designee, Dr. Hanberry and Mr. Steve Abrams.
I sent this to both. The person that he has on his designee is his assistant, so I sent the email to both of them. I know Dr. Hanberry accepted it personally, and so did his assistant. And then Steve Abrams accepted it. The only one that's not Pablo Ortiz, but he was at the last one and didn't respond, so that's why I'm kind of curious if it's going to be the same thing. Just like the last meeting where only like one person or two people confirmed, but everybody ended up showing up.
Okay.
Yeah. But I know for sure at least Steve Abrams and Dr. Hanberry will be on.
Right. It might just be a
Honestly, I even told Aralda, I was like, if it's two people, then it should go even faster. Not very many people even selected it, so I'm like,
it'll just be a a friendly conversation.
And I'm sure they would appreciate it once if we're finished sooner. So I know that they would appreciate that too. Like if we don't
I
take
would.
a whole hour and a half. See, that's why most people actually do. They actually like, oh, okay, great. It was an hour instead of an hour and a half. Perfect.
Right. Absolutely.
I was gonna turn off my camera and mute myself during everything and take notes. Like I did kind of like at the last meeting. If you guys need anything, let me know. I figure we don't need to share the agenda, but if we do, I have it up. Worst case
No.
scenario, but I
Okay.
really don't. Like I said, it's only a couple people, so you know.
Right. Yeah, and if you take notes, if you can just start making them in the form of the minutes, the less intense, but
Yeah,
still
not the
still capturing what they say. Like, so we definitely want direct quotes from them. But yeah, other than that, good to
and
go. It's gonna be a quick dash after we have the two more, and it's gonna
what
be
I was gonna
the
tell you,
meeting
it's on
1 week after.
Isabel's calendar, but she's not here yet, so I don't know if she's going to join or not.
Okay.
She says hi. No, you
No,
didn't.
yeah. Yeah, and it occurred to me that I came to the office for the last one, but nobody's there.
Well,
It's too
also
small.
because remember Dan Reynolds was here last time. He's
But
not on this one,
do you
so I don't
remember that
expect it.
we didn't expect him to be coming until he told
I,
us like,
I told you he never responds to anything. Nothing.
right?
Any
So
email that I've sent him, he's never responded. That's why I was really surprised that he showed up. But I think because he's good friends with Mayor Geller, that's why he's coming.
okay.
Yeah. From my understanding, they have a very good relationship.
And he wants to get out of the house too.
It's always the best. He said to, he's like, well, it's on my way to the office, so I can stop by. I was like, fine. All right, I'm turning off. Goodbye.
Can't believe it's November already.
Oh my God, right?
And my birthday's Wednesday.
Nice.
Alicia, you're cutting all this, right?
Say that again?
Since you started recording this early, before
Oh,
everybody.
yeah, girl, always. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
nice.
we
You can
don't.
do that.
Yeah, oh, for sure. That's what I
That's
do
why
for
I
my
don't
free
like to, yeah,
videos.
okay.
Yeah, no, I don't, And all that extra in the beginning, nobody needs to hear. I cut it until when they actually start, like, good morning, and start right there. That's how I usually start. But I do like a little intro to my videos, but this one I won't, so, but that's usually what I do for things. Isabel just now.
Mr. Abrams, hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Hi, Christina. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Christina. Mr. Abrams, how are you?
Just fine, thank you.
It's fine. Last time I saw you was pre-COVID. I used to work with you a lot, and you spoke for the Leadership Institute that I was managing. One of the transportation, it was you, Gretchen, she's the manager for the penny sales tax, I think, for Broward.
Right.
Michael from All Aboard. I don't know why I remember all this. It was like 2.5 years ago, but
Oh, remember from 2.5
yeah,
years.
yeah, that was the last time I communicated with you and organized everything. So it's good to see you again. I was trying to say. How's everything at the SFRTA?
Never a dull moment, but in general, it's good. Our ridership continues to grow, and we're very excited about that.
Good. That's good. Is Lorraine still there?
Oh yeah, she's. I think I promoted her twice since I've been the executive.
That's good. Congratulations. Give her
She
my
better
best.
still be here.
Yeah, right.
Hi.
Morning.
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 Give Lorraine my best, please. She actually participated in the Leadership Institute. No, did she? No. It was the TOD, I'm sorry. The TOD Academy that I was also managing that she participated in. So very nice lady, at least for me, with me.
Oh,
She was.
yeah. I think very highly of her.
Yeah, yeah. So we're waiting for Dr. Hambury.
Yes, Dr. Hanberry is supposed to join us as well, and then Dr. Ortiz from FIU.
Ooh, whoever's speaking is a little muddled.
Alicia, it's probably those headphones again, maybe. But thanks for letting us know. Yeah, I could underwater type.
Are you working from home, Mr. Abrams?
No, our office is like less than 15 minutes from my house, so I've never
Oh,
given up coming here.
that's like working from home.
It's better because I have other people working at home, like my wife. It's much better
Gotcha.
full concentration.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Isabel.
Hey, Isabel.
Hey, everything good?
Everything's fine, just fine.
Oh, happy to hear that. Who are we waiting for? I know we had, well, Steve can drive the whole economic policy for the region.
Especially as it relates to transit-oriented development.
Absolutely. We only need one person. We got the best right here. There you go, President Hambury. Hello, President Hambury. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you.
How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for joining us. Well, I'm only in the background, so I'm gonna let my staff do what they do best, which is work. So turn myself off.
Right. We can give Dr. Ortiz a couple more minutes to sign on with us. But since we have just a couple of us, it's good. It's a great opportunity to, really hammer out all of the issues and, take a deep dive as far as what your experiences are. You come from two different organizations, so that's also good to get different perspectives as well. This is our second work group meeting for the SEDS committee. And the first one was business attraction, workforce development. And so that was the focus area of that. This will be TOD, of course. And basically the focus will be first, in the context of our SEDS, to focus on ORALDA's CARES Act Economic Resiliency Program, which will basically be like a mini SEDS in the element, or a mini SEDS element in the larger SEDS, in the context of economic resiliency from each of our focus areas. So just as we give him a couple more minutes to sign on, we can catch him up if he does. But right, so this is our first work group meeting. You guys selected the transit-oriented development focus area, and for ORALDA's CARES Act Economic Recovery and Resiliency Program, today's goals are going to be to recommend some best practices, strategies, give you an update of what we have done so far with her program, and essentially give you an understanding of what we need to do to finish it out. That's today, and then December 6th, strategy committee meeting with all of the members. Basically give the summary of everything that we discussed, and then start to move that forward. So you might remember this big organizational chart. These are our focus areas for the SEDS. So at the top in the red circle, you'll see economic disaster recovery, COVID-19 resiliency response. And so each of those, each focus area in the blue rectangles below that will focus on that first, and then focus on all of their individual issues below that. And this was basically our guiding framework. But what we'll do today is discuss the SWOT analysis and what you said in the survey, and use that as our guiding themes and things to focus on for transit-oriented development.
Hey, Mark, Mark, can you make that a little bigger for my old eyes?
I can see. Is that working?
Yeah, it's better. Thank you.
To the right-hand side,
You have the transit-oriented development.
you see like a plus and minus button.
Ah, gotcha. All right. Thank you very much.
And then you can just click on the presentation and drag it left or right if you can't see the full thing. So,
Perfect.
got it?
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're
Right.
welcome.
And so I'll work through some of these focus area topics that we discussed this with Chair Geller. And so this was our working document. A lot of these themes are a lot of the things that you mentioned in the SWOT survey. And so I think I see Dr. Ortiz or hello.
Stephanie?
Hey, Stephanie. Are you Dr. Ortiz's designee? Hi, Stephanie. Welcome.
I'll message her privately, Mark. You can continue.
Okay, sounds good. So some of the themes that Chair Geller identified, the biggest thing, of course, with transit-oriented development is going to be connectivity and access, and that has a number of things working under that umbrella. You have broadband, mobility, a number of the issues that everybody responded to, multimodal network, lack of transit, opportunity zones, leveraging those, getting the most out of those, trying to get equity out of them as the main goal from EDA and what they're looking to accomplish with those, and other affordable living topics in general. All of these things are things that everybody mentioned in their responses to the survey, which I'll go through later. Again, transit-oriented development work group for Stephanie. Hopefully you can hear us. That's basically what the focus of today's meeting is going to be. Great. I saw your message. So first, what we wanted to do was go through and give introductions for everybody, but we've already done that a little bit, but what the idea was to take that a step further and, explain what your organization has been doing in the context of transit-oriented development and economic development in general, and some of the things that you'd like to get out of the SEDS, and, anything that in a perfect world that you would love to see, anything like that you'd like to elaborate on. I'll start it off. So I'm Mark Cassidy, the Economic Development Manager for the South Florida Regional Planning Council. What we are is we're the EDA designated economic development district. And so it's my job to manage our update of our SEDS, which will be our guiding document for 2022 to 2027. And so what we saw, as you know, there was the Build Back Better and all of the American Rescue Plan Act opportunities that have been going on, everybody applying for them. What we noticed is that there wasn't really a set regional plan and playbook ready to execute when, for example, the Build Back Better, which wanted a regional coalition to apply for everything together under one umbrella. We didn't have an exact roadmap to do something like that, so we had to do a lot of coordination to get that done. But what the idea of the SEDS is to basically write a program of regional priorities and then outline projects that will execute that plan according to what we think are the focus areas, have our performance metrics ready to go, and the organizations that would carry out the work. So all of those items are things that are in an EDA application that they require you to do. So if we outline all of those things in advance for the next 5 years, in the next 5 years, if another Build Back Better opportunity comes around, we can respond. So that's the idea with that. That's what I'm hoping to use this SEDS for. As I mentioned in the previous SEDS committee meeting, it was more of just a guiding document, but we want to do that first, take that a step further, and outline all those priority projects. So thanks, everyone. And Geralda, I'll give you the opportunity.
Hi, good morning. My name is Geralda. I'm the program manager for the CARES Act Economic Disaster Recovery Grant. My role is to serve as a liaison between state, local, and federal partners to assist our region with activities to prevent, due to COVID-19. And also, my main role is to implement economic recovery and resiliency plans with the goal to rebuilding resilient and sustainable communities throughout South Florida. And you will hear in my presentation later on what we need from you and what this program is about, and how it will be tied into the SEDS program that Mark mentioned earlier. And I'll leave it with that.
Christina? I know you mentioned that you might be under the weather, so we'll try to limit how much you have to talk today.
That's okay. Yeah, I was battling a cold prior to the weekend, but I'm doing better. As you know, my work related to transit-oriented development is through comprehensive planning and through partnership with the South Florida Regional Transportation Authority that has had excellent initiatives in that regard. So that's my level of involvement with transit-oriented development.
Great, thank you. Isabel?
My main involvement is hiring all of you to work on it. I've been involved. I've been at the council for almost 25 years now, so I've worked on East 750 as a planner, and always looking for opportunities to create transit-oriented development, friendly communities, to give people choices, to open up opportunities for people who don't want to drive a car or can't afford to drive a car. So very committed to the work. I'm very grateful to Director Abrams and the South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, who for many years, beginning with former Director Joe Giletti, has always supported the council and enabled us to work with them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel. Stephanie, since you came on late, I'll give you the floor first.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Aponte. I'm from Florida International University, and I work with Dr. Pablo Ortiz. He unfortunately couldn't join at the start time, but he will be getting on, and he generally is involved. He's kind of the university's representative with anything that involves transit. So that's why he is here. I just can't speak to at what capacity, but he is involved in anything that has to do with the university and transit, and when you guys involve him. So I am here listening, and I'm going to be taking any notes and next steps that's needed on his behalf.
Thanks, Stephanie. Dr. President George Hanberry.
Well, good morning. It's my pleasure to participate in this panel. NSU is, like all universities, a knowledge-based industry, and we have 22,000 students and 5,000 employees and about a 5 billion economic impact. Our annual operating budget is over 700 million, and our balance sheet is right at $2 billion. So getting to and from this campus, however, is a key component in South Florida for NSU. We are not just Broward oriented, we are Florida and nationally oriented throughout the nation. And we are part of the South Florida Regional Educational Center right here in Davie. This center is made up not only of Nova Southeastern University, but University of Florida, Agricultural Complex, FAU, Broward College, the Broward County school system from pre-K through 12, plus our own pre-K through 12. So I have about 2,000 pre-K through 12 students and 22,000 graduate and professional students, as well as undergrad. So we're 70% graduate and professional and 30% undergrad, contrary to all the other colleges and universities in Florida. None of them are in that vertical integrated type of an aspect where 70% are graduate and 30% undergrad. So I've got about 7,000 undergrads and 14,000 graduate and professional, everything from MD, DO, dentistry, surgery, nursing, optometry, pharmacy, business, education, all graduate, professional, clinical psychology, and law. So it's an interesting program. The key thing I'm interested about being on this is not only for economic development, which we are, and our new Levan Center of Innovation is the venue for Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance to attract and retain high-tech and biotech businesses in South Florida, but getting to and from. This South Florida educational complex, with those educational aspects that I've indicated, attract over 90,000 trips per day. And those of you, I'm sure, like Mark and others here today, realize trips per day on automobiles, 90,000 is even greater than downtown Fort Lauderdale's business community, as well as Sawgrass Mills. So those students and faculty members that come here really need mass transit. And I've always wanted, for at least the last 20 years, to have a direct rail, high-speed rail, light rail connection from the intermodal connection that's being planned for all of South Florida, and Brightline's efforts from here to Orlando, from Miami to Orlando. It would be phenomenal to have a light rail connection coming right here that could eliminate 90,000 trips a day coming to this location if we had a dedicated light rail mass transit system. So that's my key interest, and that's what I'll be pushing for South Florida. An integrated rail system to tie east, west, as well as north, south, because we are attracting students throughout the nation and far greater than just South Florida. But South Florida is developing now a mass rail system that's going beyond South Florida, and I want to be a part of that, going east-west, not just north-south.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Ortiz, thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Cassidy. I'm the Economic Development Manager managing our SEDS update process. Just wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and essentially what your role in transit-oriented development is in the region and what you'd like to see us focus on and what we could get out of the SEDS process.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. And good morning, everyone. I apologize for the late arrival. Had to tend to another issue here at the university. Nothing major, but just had to attend to that. So I am the Vice President of Regional and World Locations here at Florida International University. Part of my role is the overseeing of our 11 locations outside of the main campus. Our main campus, as everyone knows, well, I assume everyone knows here on the call, is located near Sweetwater. We have a little over 58,000 students across the university. We have a number of locations spread out around South Florida. We have 3 locations in Miami Beach, 1 location North Miami Beach, a location in Miramar, a couple of locations down in the Keys, 1 in the Brickell area. We now have a couple of research facilities, 1 out in the Hillsborough County and the other one up near Fort Pierce. So obviously for us, the discussion around transit-oriented development and access to transit is of the utmost importance. We've been working closely with our partners in the county as far as conversations and ways that we can join together in accessing some of the rapid transit accessibility options that they are working on, as well as our bus rapid transit lanes. that they're developing on 836 as well as I-95. We currently have, for example, a Panther Express, a shuttle express service that goes from our North Miami Beach campus to our main campus, and currently it takes some parts of the day over an hour and 40 minutes, over 45 minutes for students to get from one campus to the other. So as you can imagine, the ability to reduce that time will not only enhance and improve the experience that our students and faculty are having, but it will also give our faculty and students access to opportunities within the community. We know, in speaking to our students and working very closely with them, that we are losing talent here in South Florida because of the challenges around transportation. And I think that now the students that are graduating are looking for these types of communities that they, if they don't want to have a car or don't need to have a car, that's the option that they want to go with, right? They want to be able to access transit, access the type of commuter service that really the high performing metropolitan communities have. So we're here to support in that effort. We've done a lot of work around transportation and transit development and working with the partners, as I mentioned. So glad to be part of this. So thank you, Mark, very much.
Thank you. Perfect. And lastly, Mr. Abrams, the man who's going to bring it all together.
I don't know where to start. Let's see. I should have gone to Dr. Hanbury's medical school, probably. Instead, that's what my mother wanted me to do. Instead, I became a politician. So that's probably how I'm best known. In fact, Isabel will remember when I was a Palm Beach County Commissioner, I tried to bootstrap Palm Beach County into the South Florida Regional Planning Council, but they wanted to be the big kahuna in Treasure Coast instead of, but as the executive director of South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, we cover all three counties, and that was one of my arguments that really Palm Beach County, at least West Palm Beach South, is more coordinated or should be more coordinated with Broward and Miami-Dade than with Martin County and Indian River County and all the rest. So I'm glad that you're working on this initiative, and as I said at the kickoff, to the extent I can be sort of the Palm Beach County liaison, I'm glad to do that. But in my role as the head of SFRTA, which of course operates Tri-Rail, there's plenty on our plate. I think, though, from listening to the comments and just knowing what the issues are regarding transportation, that we're using this title transit-oriented development in its broadest sense, because as the planners on this call know, transit-oriented development, TOD, has a specific meaning when it comes to building projects at or very close to existing transit hubs or transit stations. But clearly the problem that we're trying to address is just mobility in general and orienting transit toward the places where people need to be, whether it be work or, as we've heard on this call, certainly school. So we deal with both here at SFRTA. I mean, one way that we attack the workforce housing problem is and mobility problem that's related to that is to connect affordable neighborhoods to major cities. So you can live in Opelika and get on one of our trains, or frankly, you can live west. So you can live in a Tamarack, let's say, and by accessing Tri-Rail on our 73-mile corridor, have access to all of the employment centers that are along our corridor: Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, West Palm Beach. So that's one and maybe even the primary way that we deal with that type of accessibility. The other, though, is the more traditional TOD. So we've been trying to re-emphasize that here at the agency. We have we've issued two TOD RFPs. We have two more coming. Unfortunately, we don't control the land surrounding all 18 of our stations. We only control the land around 4 of them. But we do partner with the different other entities that control land next to our stations. For example, FDOT owns land next to several of our stations. Palm Beach County owns land next to our Delray Beach station. So we're working with them to create more transit-oriented developments. And then the other thing is that we're the beneficiary of employment centers locating near our stations. So without offending anybody on this call, and frankly, I'm a UM dad myself, but we have the University of Florida, you may have read about, that is opening a satellite campus in West Palm Beach in conjunction with Palm Beach County and the city of West Palm Beach that will literally be directly across, just paces away from our West Palm Beach station. So that's, clearly an opportunity to create that kind of interaction. So that's an outline of the way I view the issue broadly. As far as taking what I'd like to see from this effort is fleshing that out and maybe coming up with a plan to effectuate that. Also, I would say that the issues are tricky about expanding rail. It's expensive. You want to try to use existing rail corridors when you can. I would say that sort of one of my pet peeves concerns Brightline, and I love Brightline. I can't wait till they come back on November 8th. I use Brightline, but I see so many times economic development professionals, and there was probably every month there's a story in the Sun Sentinel, for example, and I think even yesterday there was one quoting economic development professionals as saying that Brightline is the answer to all of our prayers. It's going to be the catalyst for attracting new businesses from all over. And that just shows a lack of understanding of Brightline, which is an inner city passenger service that is geared toward tourists. If you rode it when they were in service, it's an expensive ticket. You pay for parking, limited stations, limited hours of operation. I mean, it's about every 30 to 60 minutes. It is, and they are the first to admit they are not for the everyday commuter. The average worker who works at a hospital, who works at Nova, who works at a construction site, who needs to have transportation to and from his or her job that is affordable, that is reliable, frequent, that has frequency, and that's really what we provide. So two different rail operations that are both needed and complement each other, but they're not the same. So I put that out to the group here. And
Mr. Abrams, let me try to correct myself.
I wasn't like targeting you in particular. I'm just saying it's a conception that people
and my own students go by Tri-Rail. I've got students now coming from right from West Palm Beach all the way to here, and then we have the shuttle from Tri-Rail. I would love to have the connection light rail from the Tri-Rail station, but I just mentioned Brightline. I'm saying
I wasn't trying to put you on the defense. I was just, believe me, you didn't even come to mind. It was more the Sun Sentinel articles that I read every day.
No, I did say Brightline, but even when I was city manager in Fort Lauderdale,
yes,
I tried to get Tri-Rail on the FEC track to be closer to
correct.
population area.
And you know that is very much under the planning for that is very much underway now. So you were the visionary on that, and hopefully Miami-Dade and Broward County are going to be able to cut their deals with Brightline in order to make that happen. But yes, I'm a proponent of East-West. It's a little tricky being the executive director of SFRTA with our 3 counties. And so anytime you go east to west, you're doing that in one particular county, which, you know, is a somewhat little contrary to the 3 county mission. But I'm pushing it, for example, in Palm Beach County, again, on existing rail, because the way our tracks work, you know, which were constructed in the 1920s for the old Seaboard Railroad, when you hit our termination point in Mangonia Park, the tracks actually veer out to, you know, Lakeland or wherever they go. And so, you know, there is an opportunity there for some east-west connection on our tracks, but I certainly would be a complete proponent and advocate of it in Broward and in Miami-Dade County, because we know that's exactly where so much of the need is.
Yeah, you know, if we could have another, now this would really be audacious, if we proposed another north-south route with connecting east-west routes so that you could almost make a huge loop going on the East Coast and then down on the west side by the Everglades, and then you would have a loop around South Florida and could tie east and west from Everglades to the ocean. That would be audacious and probably, but if we had done that before development occurred, but see, people are frightened to make audacious claims. But I really think we could have a whole loop around South Florida, tying all 3 counties, both east side and west side, with north-south connectors and east-west connect, kind of like a big metro around Paris or London or any other large, New York or Washington D.C. You know, all it takes is some audacious planning, and that's what this group is, I think, supposed to be doing.
Well, that is on a smaller scale what exactly we're in the process of seeking to plan by by adding commuter rail to the FEC corridor. It's not as far, and using our tracks as that western track, it's not as far west as what you're mentioning, you know, that would be more State Road 7 kind of further west. But a lot of folks don't realize that the 2 corridors, even though they're parallel, are currently interconnected. So you can do that loop. We currently have the connection in Hialeah at 79th Street, which is the connection that we're going to be using to go into Miami Central Station. There is a crossover that is constructed up in West Palm Beach. And there is a third crossover that's in the planning stages in Pompano Beach. So we do it very much envision that loop, but you're right, we'd have to sort of make the east-west connection more prominent in that.
Yeah, if we could almost follow either the Sawgrass or even the Florida Turnpike coming down there, and that gives a further west, because as you know, the population in Broward, almost 80% of the population in Broward is west of 95.
Wow, I didn't know that statistic. I mean, I know that from observation, I guess. But I would just simply add one thing, that you are absolutely right. It takes audacious planning, and it takes audacious amounts of money. So hopefully, you know, this is something that, frankly, you know, I remain optimistic about. I mean, we see we are crossing our fingers that the infrastructure bill will pass, which will flow more money into transit and rail. We have, you know, a president who is, you know, the self-proclaimed train guy. So, you know, I'm hopeful that that there will be funding sources to do some of these audacious ideas, which I completely agree with.
And we're occupying most of the conversation, so I'll shut up.
Oh, yeah,
and
as well. I'm muting.
No, that's fine. I think that, you know, we're fleshing out a lot of the issues right now, and this is what we were looking to do, you know, at any point in our presentation. So I'm glad we were able to get it started, and we'll revisit it. But Geraldo, turn it
All
over
right.
to you.
Perfect. I will make this as quick as possible. So just so you can visualize what my presentation will be about, I'll start by setting the stage and defining economic resilience per the EDA guidelines. I'll give you an overview of the grant and a grant roadmap of what we have accomplished so far and where we are right now. I'll go a step further and explain the EDA, the Economic Development Agency activities needed to meet this grant goal. We'll show some data and our other accomplishments, if you will, of what we have achieved. Explain your role as a committee member in the process. And lastly, we're going to ask for your feedback and advice. So what is economic resiliency as defined by EDA? So from a long-term perspective, resilient economies find ways to adapt to changing conditions, such as disruptions to major supply chains, so that future losses are minimized and continuing stresses are adequately managed. According to the EDA, the economic resilience refers to the ability of local economies to bounce back to normal conditions after losing function because of uncontrollable events such as COVID-19. And in addition to build capacity to withstand shocks, resilient economies take necessary measures to prevent and avoid other major disruptions. And lastly, for economic resilience strategies to be successful, equity must be an integrated component of long-term plans, ensuring that all who live and work within a given community, they have access to good education, affordable housing, and transportation that can prosper. All topics and issues that you all mentioned earlier when you were introducing yourselves. So in August of 2020, the Council was awarded the CARES Act grant to help the region to prepare for, prevent, and respond to existing and future impacts caused by COVID-19. I was part of that, the grant, as in I was hired to manage this program and to develop COVID response activities, including technical assistance, enhancing regional planning, collaboration, and intergovernmental coordination among local governments, economic development organizations, the business community, and other key stakeholders. And this is just a grant roadmap to show you what we have done since we got the grant. And amongst the activities that we have accomplished have been outreach through educational webinars, which is a big part of this program, development of available lists of funding sources and grants at specific agencies, survey, and COVID economic impact. Further down this presentation, you will see the data that we have collected on all three of them so that you get an idea of where we are. And moving forward from the fifth quarter was creating the SEDS committee and the work groups. And from October, the sixth quarter, from October to December, we will work with you and the strategy committee to develop long-term economic resilience plan that supports economic diversification, job creation, capital investment, and workforce development opportunities. So we're hoping that you will help us identify some of these strategies that will serve as a roadmap to economic development representatives of the region for future pandemic-related events. And this economic resilience plan will be included in the SEDS update that goes from 2017 to 2022. Just something to keep in mind, we're hoping to have a draft report with strategies, recommendations, goals, objectives, you name it, by March of 2022, since the final report is due to the EDA by June of 2022. So just so that you get an idea, some of the activities that are needed to meet the grand goal. Number one is obviously align all these COVID-19 related response efforts with the goals of the SEDS 2017-2022, which are, excuse me, economic diversification, business attraction, workforce development, TOD, and environment and resilient infrastructure. Next was another activity that was needed is identifying areas needed for research and data analysis to support the development of the new disaster recovery and economic resiliency focused component of the SEDS. And that was a survey and the economic impact report that was done. The survey was done from December to January of 2020. And just so that you get an idea, we asked economic development representatives in the entire South Florida region, what were the top 3 issues that were reported to them by the small businesses and the community as a result of COVID. And as I'm sure you know, loss of income, revenue, business. Number 2 was lack of financial support, be that no available governmental assistance, funding, grants, not knowing how to navigate the PPP loans at the time, and are losing out to big corporations. And the third top issue was lack of communication, miscommunication from local, state, or federal government on how businesses should operate. Open, closing hours, confusing regulations, miscommunication or lack thereof of programs, services being offered by the government to small businesses, or lack of aggressive education from the government as part of the communication. So this is just the graph to show you all the answers. And honestly, surprisingly, the staffing was also just as the same amount of votes as lack of communication, be that no staff was available at the time, which is even now, everyone is saying that there's no staff to work, which is really interesting, or staff working remotely, reluctant to come in person, and whatnot. And then in May of 2021, we did the COVID, I'll run the report, the slides, Mark, if you will. We did the COVID 2021 economic impact report, and Mark will run this one for us.
So my neighbor is running the blower. Can you hear it? Is it a problem?
It's okay. It's okay.
Is it distracting, or Araldo, would you rather just take care of it?
No, I'm fine.
Mr. Abrams is saying it's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
As long as you can hear me, I guess. Okay, right. So one of the things that we had to do for our program was collect data. And so what we did was use REMI, our economic impact modeling software, to forecast what would happen in 2020 and then in 2021 as well. And so more or less what I like to say in this graphic is that in 2020, we had the forecast of extreme business closure, nobody around, and significant impacts. And in 2021, we did an updated report, and it started to essentially pick up on that there was economic resilience and other things that people were doing, like on the right, instead of, if there's no traffic, this is down in South Beach, if there's no traffic on the road, expanding, the restaurant areas to outdoors and things like that to adapt. And so we saw in the data that an expected economic recovery, not completely back to normal, but definitely getting there. So some of the data that was covered in that report was, by industry, job loss. Job loss is across the board, but especially concentrated leisure and hospitality and retail trade, of course. Couldn't go to the store, so significant job losses in those sectors. And this was actual data from BLS. And then you can go to the next, Aralda. But yeah, you could see the hospitality and retail trade were just most significantly impacted, and that it wasn't just economic data that was supporting that conclusion. It also was travel patterns. This was using Google mobility data. As you know, Google has access to where all of us are traveling at all times. And so they put locations into bins, like those categories on the left: retail, recreation, grocery, and pharmacy. And Google is able to understand where people are traveling to and from. And so Here, you saw in 2020, especially in Monroe County, significant decreases in travel. So it wasn't just in sales, it was also that people weren't going anywhere. But in 2021, you're starting to see a recovery in travel. And down at the bottom, you see the increase in residential travel. People really aren't going anywhere except staying home or going to another person's house at this point. So as part of our COVID-19 economic impact report, this was the summary of the actual data that we had, and it actually supported what our original forecast for 2020 would be. Nearly the same impacts there. Of course, Monroe County, extreme impacts with their, because of their industry mix, but across the board, employment losses, labor force reduction, but interestingly, personal income on the rise, except in Monroe County. So in Miami-Dade and Broward County, personal income in aggregate increased despite less people working, despite less people seemingly looking for work in 2020, so it's interesting to see that. And then we did a 2020 report and then followed it up with 2021 data, which you can go to the next, Geraldo. And so we can see this year is that Monroe County is still suffering, Miami-Dade starting to make a recovery, and Broward is relatively stagnant. But you can still see down at the bottom those personal income effects, same pattern there. But essentially what the COVID-19 report told us, at least using the best available data in May of 2021, was that Monroe would still be suffering, Miami-Dade County would start to make a recovery, and Broward would be relatively stagnant. And as we're starting to look at newer data, we're starting to see that that is basically what's happening.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. And so the other activities, like I mentioned, part of this grant is community outreach. And we have had many, many of them, and the outcomes have been just to introduce the council on how we can assist our technical services that we have available, our other services, sort of like introduced EDA funding opportunities and how the council can be of help when municipalities are applying for such grants to the EDA. In August of 2021, we had our most successful program or a webinar with Mayor Cava, Mayor Geller, and Mayor Ross talking about their economic resiliency plans, issues that they encountered, and how the ARPA funds were going to be allocated for each, at least Miami-Dade and Broward County. The outcomes, and this is just for informational purposes only, what Miami-Dade had allocated, they received $527.7 million. Broward 189, and other outcomes that came from this was confusion, uncertainty as to what was going to happen. And again, we go back to the communication, lack of communication between agencies, no coordination between county and city for allocation of funds or infrastructure projects in general. We had in October, just last week, actually, leadership in times of crisis. Some of the outcomes were how communication and outreach are important and what cities can do. The whole neighborhood revitalization process, tongue-tied, and approaches to economic resilience and diversification. Our next program is November 9th. Actually, next week, we will focus on workforce development and sort of like what are the companies that are moving in the industries and software region, available workforce training programs, specific initiatives that have worked and how we can improve them, how they can be improved, which jobs, professions, and skill sets are most in demand, and how is our region preparing for all this transformation, right? So moving on to the other EDA activities that are needed to meet this grand goal is identify and address opportunities to drive investment in opportunity zones, develop in conjunction with you guys and stakeholders plans and activities that support economic diversification, job creation, capital investment, workforce development, and other opportunities I mentioned earlier. And especially identify and provide performance measures for future similar events. So what are we asking you to do? What do we need your help with, and why we invited you today at this meeting? So you heard what we have accomplished in detail up till now. What we need is for you to assess, recommend, identify, and develop. Assessment falls under comprehensively assess the conditions that local communities in South Florida are dealing with. And we're going to share the COVID-19 economic impact report that staff has done and the survey as you got it. I'm not sure if do we need any other data, that you just keep that question in the back of your mind, and when we get to the next slide for the feedback, please feel free to tell us if we need any other sort of data that would make this process for you easier. And also recommend strategies that will assist member governments and communities in meeting these short or long-term economic recovery objectives as they relate to the coronavirus or other pandemics. So in developing these recommendations, you will review the existing economic damage surveys, like I said, data and reports, and you'll make an inventory of available strategies that can increase the region's resilience to disruptions moving forward. And through support from staff, you'll help us identify performance measures and long-term objectives and strategies that will protect South Florida from a broad range of future shocks and stresses. And lastly, the committee will help us develop a regional economic resilience plan that will have all these strategies and objectives and performance measures, and hopefully that this economic resilience plan will be holistic, action-oriented, equitable, and capable of being executed. So you now have an understanding of the program. Do you have any questions about the program? Any comments that you want to give us? Anything that I need to explain or whatnot? Any feedback that you want to give us?
Well, I'm for one, go back to what I said originally. I think the only way we're going to have true economic development and have affordable housing and be able to have workforce development and improve educational delivery is to have a dedicated transportation source that doesn't have to share the road with the automobile. And that, in my mind, is a rail connection. So if you want to ask my recommendation, I'm going to be consistent. And that's the only reason why I agreed to be on this committee, is because I want us to take a stand and say that transportation is essential to everything we talk about we want to attract to come to South Florida. Education, affordable housing, economic expansion, prosperity. It's got to have a dedicated, unbridled transportation system, just like every major metropolitan area. And I consider Palm Beach as much of the metropolitan area as Broward, Miami, and Monroe. So we need to have a dedicated transportation system, unbridled and uninterfered with by the automobile or buses, a dedicated independent transportation system. And I see that as rail, not as transportation by buses, because that's not dependable and reliable for people to get to one place to another. And it needs to be affordable, just like we were talking about the tri-rail system. So I will continue to say that our planners need to look at how we can connect South Florida by a dedicated rail system. So that's my recommendation, and I'm going to stick with it because it answers every one of your questions.
Yep. Fix the last mile, pretty much. Can make the
Exactly.
So I second the motion. Also, you, and I don't know if this is one of your committees, but rail addresses issues related to climate change. I mean, we in South Florida, as we all know, ground zero for climate change. Transportation is 70 up to 70% of the oil barrel. And if you're serious about reducing the carbon footprint, you have to take cars off the roads. And whenever even some of the more innovative technologies that we read about, autonomous vehicles, et cetera, the rapid bus, they are still on the road. So rail obviously removes cars from the road. You know, we have a sign here at our Pompano station that says 400 cars equals 8 buses equals 1 train. So it goes a long way toward helping to solve that issue, which is so important to South Florida as well.
Quick question.
And maybe we could even recommend not only diesel, but electric. That would be even more.
I was just going to ask that. I'm glad you mentioned that, President Hambury. If you were using any alternative fuel for tri-rail or planning electrical vehicles or not.
Well, we are anxiously awaiting innovations in that technology, and as we buy new rolling stock, we're certainly going to try to adapt it. I know there are a couple, Long Island Railroad, and I think a couple of other commuter railroads are now experimenting with electric vehicles. GM now is in the train business. And so we're looking forward to whatever innovations they can bring. But yes, if we can convert, that would be tremendous, and we're certainly looking to do that.
Perfect.
And yeah, some have even explored solar electric. So, you know, I think this committee with the planning staff can really come up with some audacious plans. So I encourage the planners to look at some of the things Mr. Abrams and I have talked about and see if we can't give some daggone good solid recommendations that don't just satisfy the political status quo.
That's why we called you here. You will suggest and recommend those strategies so they're real and adaptable and actionable, pretty much. So, Dr. Ortiz, do you have any feedback, any questions about the CARES Act program, what we're trying to accomplish with it?
Listen, I just want to echo President Hamburger's comments, right? I mean, I think we're both looking to try and accomplish the same thing. I 100% support the idea of a dedicated transportation option. I think it's incredibly necessary for the viability and the resiliency of our communities. I do feel that it should be beyond Miami-Dade and Broward, all the way to Palm Beach. That is the South Florida corridor. We have a great number of employees, faculty and staff that live in the Palm Beach area and have to commute for a very extensive amount of time just to get into work. So to provide that option, I think is really what the priority should be for this group in terms of developing some ideas moving forward. You know, we've had conversations, and I'll give you an example. We've had conversations as we refer back to the Bright Line with the county, right, in terms of even where on the commuter rail aspect of the line that is going along the I-95 corridor here in Miami-Dade, where some of those train stations should go, right, and trying to connect those to potential transit-oriented development. Well, you know, what better place to start than to tap into the thousands of students who are looking to commute to and from campuses, to and from certain areas of the community into, let's say, downtown Miami, giving them access now to a booming area for Miami as this tech boom is hitting us here. And I agree with the president. I mean, to have and expect students to have to go on buses to accomplish this, is, as we know, is not not a very consistent, nor is it really what the trend is looking like moving forward, right? They need to know they can get in and out very quickly, very easily accessible. And in that first and last mile, I think is where we all can be very creative in how we can make that happen. We've talked to our city counterparts and our partners within North Miami Beach and North Miami that we can have shuttle services. We provide our own shuttle services from the university to get them to whatever that station looks like and where they're starting to develop a transit oriented type of project around those stations. So it really starts, in my opinion, it starts and stops with the opportunity to create that dedicated transportation corridor for our Tri-County area and all of our partners throughout. So that's where we stand. I'm in full support.
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Oh, oops. So for next steps that we have, I mean, we want to discuss like how do we tie, if you look at the questions are on this slide, any comments or feedback you want, because we want to include these in the economic resiliency plan, sort of like what goals and objectives should be included as it relates to transit-oriented development. What types of performance measures should be considered for future events when it connects, relates to TOD? And also,
Well, I think, yeah, Geralda, I think the only way you can measure anything is 1 mile at a time, especially in transportation. So if we want to have performance measurements, Miami has done a beautiful job. My wife and I flew into Miami International Airport. We took the connector train from the airport to Tri-Rail. We transferred onto Tri-Rail and we came right down to Broward Boulevard on the Tri-Rail, and I got a taxi from the Tri-Rail station to my house. So, and I was able to do it, but it was on a dedicated system. So if we want to try to connect all counties together, then our performance measure should be at least so many miles of track lead or so many miles of connecting systems to tie this in every year. And especially if you want to measure performance measures, if indeed this infrastructure, this $1 trillion infrastructure, and they're arguing about whether it should be 3 trillion or 1 trillion. I don't care. If it got into just 1 trillion, then we ought to be measuring, we're going to try to get blank amount of that $1 trillion every year. So we measure miles and we measure dollars we get from federal, state, and local money, and how we can leverage that, and a plan on how we're going to do it, and how we can collaboratively go for it. In other words, it's a heck of a lot better if all 3 counties applied for the same thing, even if the first mile was going to be in Miami. I think it would be positive for us to work as a region and make the request as a region instead of 3 different counties. And that's where the South Florida Planning District can really, so we make the applications. So the performance measures should be how many grants we're going to apply for every year, how many miles we're going to be able to do, how much money do we expect we will get from federal, state, and local, especially if all 3 local counties, or 4, you include Monroe, could be. I went down to the Keys. They need a dedicated system just as bad as the other 3, probably even more so. So, yeah, let's look at measure dollars and miles.
great.
If our whole goal is improving the transportation, and we want to look at a dedicated system, then it's miles and dollars that we use. And I think that's the only way we're going to show success. We're not going to show success by talking. It's going to have to be dollars and miles of advancement to see each how we're going to connect this dedicated system 1 mile at a time.
Perfect, perfect. Great point.
Just a practical comment on this title of this committee is transit-oriented development. So you followed, to the planners on the call, what I said about TOD has a very narrow, specific meaning in planning, and yet our discussion, I think appropriately, is much broader than just wanting to build mixed use next to a particular station. So, you know, just when you start to write this up, you know, you need to capture the conversation more broadly than what planners know to be strictly TOD development. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Sorry, we have you.
So sorry, I will. So for one, I was thinking about bringing this up at some point, and now's a good time. So I'll move to propose we change the name of our focus, because the focus of our work group is beyond transit-oriented development, and it is a component of what we are trying to accomplish. So I do move for us to perhaps change our general work group name and focus to mobility and access. That way we can integrate transit-oriented development and housing and all of those things into it as well.
Yes.
So moving forward will be the mobility and
And
access
don't
work
forget
group.
education, Mark. Don't forget education.
Absolutely.
That's upward mobility.
Yeah. Right, right. Dr. Ortiz, any comments on like performance measures that we should include? What types of goals and objectives that we should include?
Well, I actually have a question with that, and not quite sure, because I've heard different reports. Are we with the common understanding as to what the mobility options are that are either being considered or have been decided on? I know, for example, I know here in Miami-Dade in particular, there is still a lot of debate as to what kind of system that would work across the county. So are we pretty, you know, confident or comfortable with the one system? I mean, we're looking at light rail. Is this?
Mark?
Well, and Christina, I think Christina might be able to give some comments as well. But one thing that I was thinking of, especially in the context of resiliency and, you know, this pandemic, was there are the other options like the Smart Demonstration Plan program with their last mile connectivity in Miami-Dade and things like that. Ridership in those were greatly reduced. So I think it's important to focus on, you know, programs like that as well, not just you know, the specific transit construction options. And
My
you know
understanding
that
is the same, that it was the focus of the group wasn't necessarily to choose technology, but to choose strategies regionally to support improved mobility.
right. And I think that oh, sorry, go ahead, Christina.
Not just to focus on the light rail, but of course that seems to be the regional aspiration.
Okay. Well, I mean, in terms of performance measures, I would just add on there is some kind of a measurable outcome around ridership or potential ridership as we look at the development of this plan. I think that's going to weigh heavily in terms of operating costs and being able to manage that moving forward. So I do think that the educational aspect of this is important, where the institutions are. And keeping the stations or the transit-oriented development options near and around those locations, as well as some heavily dense or populated areas as well. So, you know, some way that we can measure what the potential ridership would be, depending on where we're looking to advance the options as far as the stations are concerned.
And I agree with that completely. As I said, right here in Davie, we've measured transportation wise 90,000 trips a day. And
Right.
most of those trips are one person in a car. And if we could have, and that would definitely be a performance measurement. If we got off 90,000 trips a day coming to this area because of FAU students, Broward College students, University of Florida students, and our own students, we that would definitely be a performance measurement that
Yep.
I think we could go for the environment and everything else, just like what has been said.
Yeah, that was it. That's what I really think the ridership is an important one.
And I was just going to say that not just for rail or in general, but I know that Miami-Dade TPO has their SMART demonstration program where they're doing last mile connectivity, so also measuring things like that. And I was just thinking that I think that that ties into economic resiliency and recovery, because we can talk about how it's great and how we need to install, and construct light rail systems, but that's very slow, and that is not exactly the easiest way to recover from a pandemic. So at least from that perspective, we can, think about the options that people, have as far as ridership in the demonstration program, and increasing those options, because ridership was so impacted in that program, because people weren't using transit. So I think that in the context of pandemic resiliency, which is one of our initial focus at least, I think that thinking about a multimodal system and having lots of options is going to be important as well.
Couldn't agree more. And I will go ahead and show, if nobody else has any more feedback or comments or suggestions, we will show you this. So these are that they're going the same way. These are the pressing issues that the first work group identified, which are the same exact ones that you have identified today: affordable housing, transportation, workforce development, and new strategies for new business attraction and or retaining existing businesses, pretty much. So I just wanted to say, I mean, we're going to base our economic resiliency plan, obviously, depending on, because we have other work groups as well, but it's going to be based on these 4 issues, and we will need performance measures and strategies or action plans for each of them. If you have any I know you're signed up for, well, I'm going to start calling it the Mobility and Access Work Group from now on, not just the TOD as we decided. So if you have any recommendations on these 4 topics, I know you mentioned transportation and what we can do, but for affordable housing, what strategies we can use, or performance measures, how to fix this issue, please, by all means, help us out. Anything you can suggest to us that we should include in the SEDS economic resiliency plan, we would greatly appreciate it. So,
Geraldo, I think I'm repeating myself now, but a dedicated transportation source that is not throttled by buses or cars ties all 4 of those together. I participated with Michael Finney when we were trying to attract Amazon, and they loved the transportation system that Miami had, but they said what Broward and Palm Beach and Monroe had was miserable. And they were looking for a dedicated transportation source that tied in workforce development, affordable housing, and a dedicated source would attract companies like Amazon to come to South Florida. So we keep talking around the subject, but something that ties all of that, as well as the one that's not on there and the one that I like to see, and that is education. What makes this area great? We've got at least FIU, FAU, University of Miami, and NSU. They are all doctoral research universities that have graduate programs that help to attract and retain businesses. And if you can get those four, not only to collaborate, but to be easily connected through dedicated rail system, then you're seeing the synergies of education help to blossom and develop, because all of us are knowledge-based industries. But if we could be connected through, not only we are all connected through fiber optic, through the Florida Lambda Rail, a gig fiber optic connection, but to be connected by a dedicated source like light rail, education, strategic business and attraction, workforce development, and affordable housing all come together. The linchpin is a dedicated transportation source. So I would put your report with that spin on it, and we're answering all four questions, but I would like for you to see higher education, not just pre-K through 12. Many of our economic development agencies in all three counties, whether it's Palm Beach, Broward, or Miami-Dade, when they speak of education, they're speaking about pre-K through 12 and possibly community college, the first 2 years. But when I was talking to Amazon about coming here, when I was down in Miami-Dade, they wanted to know, what kind of research are we doing in our universities? What and how will the training be for those individuals that they want to be doing in coding and web development and all of that, which is a little bit more than what you get with a certificate from Microsoft, you know. And I think many of our economic development agencies don't realize many of these businesses want a higher education opportunities that at least those four universities that I talked about in South Florida, FIU, NSU, and FAU are doing. So higher education, I would like to include not just education, but higher education.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Abrams?
I'm good.
Good. Okay.
You're all speaking my language, so I have nothing to add.
That's good. Dr. Ortiz, anything,
No, I'm good on my end.
Huh?
I'm good. I'm good as well.
Okay. All right. Perfect. I think we can move forward with your part of the presentation, Mark. We got everything for the CARES Act program at the moment, so we can just move forward because we're running a little bit out of time. I'm not sure how much time you need, so I will.
Right, you can keep controls, and right, I'll just go through it. We were just I was going to present your responses to the SWOT analysis and just kind of give the themes, but we've been discussing them at length today. So I'll just go through that real quick. We have 10 minutes left. So you can go to the next. Yeah, so basically for each of your responses, I put them into a word cloud, try to get some trends in what we're seeing. And of course, higher education, diversity, weather, everybody says weather, of course. These are a couple of the things that we've been discussing, basically over and over again in our meeting today. So, these are the strengths. I actually wanted to go through and just mention a couple of the responses verbatim, just so that we can understand what all of us today said. So for example, Dr. Ortiz, economic growth, opportunity, strong K through 12 systems. Diversity, location, weather, growing population. And so basically what I'll do is give a little summary at the end of this and what the key themes that everybody identified are, because as you heard, everybody says the same thing. So for the weaknesses, limited public transit, affordable housing, of course, all of the issues that we've basically, went through over and over again. So don't really need to keep going through it. But as you can see, everybody says the same things, especially those. Go back real quick, Aldo.
Sorry.
No worries. But yes, multiple, so it's hard to get without having it coded or anything or giving you specific things to select. It's going to be hard to find those trends. But I mean, affordable housing and public transit everybody is basically saying that those are the weaknesses. So, as we've discussed over and over again. For our opportunities, our sports, there was an interesting comment from, for our opportunities, from about the sports stadiums and if there was a team that had a winning season. Who said that? You, Mr. Abrams? I agree that the sports culture, is a great economic driver, and that's something that's kind of lacking in Florida unless the Heat decide to be good.
Well, it's not lacking in Florida if you go to Tampa, where they have a Super Bowl winner, where they have a Stanley Cup champion, and where they have a baseball team that goes deep into the playoffs.
Absolutely.
And the spirit of there with the banners, I mean, it makes a difference.
Absolutely, and it's on the buses. 2021 Super Bowl champions, go Bucks, go everything. It's all there, and yeah, so it really does unify the region. So I thought that was an interesting response. And then a couple other ones, that was basically it for the opportunities. Threats, climate change over and over again. And basically our blessing is our weather, but our curse is also environmental impacts. Each of you responded with saying something about that. But also, other things to mention were like political polarization, gridlock, status quo. So there was a little bit about that. There was in the previous work group, there was a lot of mention about things like government disconnect. There was some mention in your responses. I'm sure you might be able to elaborate on that or may agree, but I did see some of those. But exactly, you basically have a region that's trying to prioritize things, and there's a government disconnect, and you have small municipalities that aren't all working together as a region. So these were the commonly repeated themes, lack of affordable housing. All that we have are a bunch of high rises, climate, king tide, sunny day flooding, and highway congestion because of lack of transportation options. So these were your responses, and you can go to the next. Basically, from the previous work group, they did the same thing, of course, and I came up with this three-legged stool graphic, which kind of summarized their responses. Yours were a little bit more broad, but basically saying the same thing. They over and over again mentioned a government disconnect and problems with leadership as as an impediment, basically, to everybody working together. And so everybody mentioned the issues and then mentioned that there was leadership government disconnect going along with it. Your responses didn't say so much of that, but there was a little bit of it from memory. The priorities are not aligned, basically. So more or less, this is kind of what we're seeing here. Is that same with you and the business attraction workforce development work group. This is what we're seeing: the environmental threats, the transportation problems, and we need to get unified to coordinate these efforts. And so that was it for the work group meeting. But for next steps, so our next main said strategy committee is going to be Monday, December 6th. That's going to be all of our work group. All the work groups will be attending, just like the first meeting that you were at. And what we'll do is take all of your responses from today, distill that, come up with key themes from the broad perspectives, and basically have a discussion with all the SEDS committee members and finalize what we are looking to do for the goals and objectives and all the things that we're looking to accomplish with the SEDS. And then, and so we'll give an update on the CARES Act program, summarize that, and we'll actually discuss plans, goals, and objectives and identify specific things that we would need to do, which, we've already discussed them here today, and we'll basically present what all the work groups have said, the focuses need to be, and then adopt it. And then take that to the next work group meeting, which you can go to the next. We'll follow that up. We'll do in similar fashion. January 24th, we will do another work group meeting on Monday. And so we'll basically move everything forward. We'll identify our projects. So that's when we'll start actually saying, this is a project. We've mentioned today, if there was some kind of link from Tri-Rail to Nova Southeastern University, how in the heck are we going to do that? Because we know that that is a challenge. There are a number of challenges. So we'll actually figure out what would be a feasible program, how much it would probably cost, where we would get funding for and everything, and actually start figuring out that evaluation framework. Yeah, not you. Yeah, we're coming for you, Mr. Abrams. But right, so basically, we've taken this meeting to give you an introduction, start understanding where everybody's head's at, as far as what we'd like to do, what we need to do, and then in our next meetings, we're going to figure out how we're going to do it.
With 3 minutes left. Thank you.
Good
Good
time.
presentation. I
All
appreciate
right.
all
Well, if you guys don't have any other comments or feedback or questions, then we'll reach out to you. We'll send you some notes from what was discussed today. And as Mark said, our next work group meeting will be in January of 2022. So expect a calendar invite from Alicia. By the way, thank you, Alicia, for helping us out coordinate all this. Greatly appreciated.
You're very welcome.
And with that, I think we're all done, right, Mark?
Yes, very good.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your help. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank you, Isabel.
Have a great week.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.